2, 3, 4. And welcome back to Swift Guitar Lessons. Today I'm super excited to share with you some top secret blues guitar tricks. Now these are ideas that for years I'd see other blues players playing them and I wonder how they were executed. We're going to learn how to enhance our blues shuffle in the key of E. We're also going to learn how to do a really cool Stevie Vaughn style strumming pattern, and then we're going to move on to a dynamic turnaround that separates our bass and treble tunes for a traveling kind of feel. Let's get started. Okay, a close look at the fretboard, and we're getting started with a fantastic innovation to our basic shuffle pattern over E major. Something like this. Okay, so the basic pattern, something most blues players are pretty well acquainted with. But we're gonna give it a feeling of motion by including the open strings. Now we have this sound here. To do this, we only need 3 shapes. A basic E7 shape, this is just a 2-finger chord, my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, my first finger here on the G sharp, 1st fret G. Then I have the 2nd fret position here on the G string, and my 3rd finger going up to the 4th fret of the A. Every other string is open. You can choose to include your low E string too, tactfully. Also, we have this shape here, which is basically the same position that we had in shape number 1, but now here in the 4th fret position. My first finger, 4th fret G string, middle finger on the 5th fret of the A string. So now we have. And then we backtrack. For a nice little traveling sound here. We want to throw in some 8th note strums. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Making sure to scoot to the next chord on the upstroke. 1. So 1, change 1, change 1, change 1, change. So it's okay if you're kind of up in the air and moving as you do those upstrokes there. You can play around with which strings you actually strum. You can throw in a little hammer on too on the first little position there. Keep your upstrokes nice and light. Just by allowing those top strings to chirp a little bit there. We're going to do an upstroke, but not follow through all the way to the low strings. Just keep them nice and light. So when you add together the element of that hammer on that first beat and the tactful separation of bass and treble, just doing those nice light upstrokes, you end up with something that sounds very professional, very well controlled for a nice traveling shuffle. Okay, keep practicing that shuffle pattern. It's going to sound great in no time. Before we move on to our Stevie Vaughn style strumming pattern, I want you all to take a look in the description box where you see a new request a song link. For those of you who have been following the channel, you know I do a lot of song tutorials. This is your chance to have one of your favorite tunes broken down step by step. Okay, let's get into that strumming pattern. Okay, so you have your new and improved E major shuffle pattern down. Now this is something that you can utilize in a standard 12-bar blues. Maybe 16 beats of E before going to just a regular A shuffle would sound nice. And then you're back. At this point in the progression, we go to the 5 chord. And you can keep them pretty standard before going into your turnaround, but what we want to do is amp up the energy. The way I do that is by adding in some staccato strums, something like this. All right, one more time, nice and slow. I might throw in a walk down as well. getting into the turnaround. Okay, so what we have there over that B9 chord, if you don't know this shape, my middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the A string, first finger plays the major 3rd, that's the 1st fret of the D, right, that E flat note right there, and then my 3rd finger is draped, barn actually, across 3 strings, G, B, and E on the 2nd fret, to create B9. And I like this chord because it's gonna utilize all the strings, so when I take the pressure off, I got nothing but total silence. So with that B9 chord fretted, in order to get that effect, we got a very specific pattern of strums down, okay? And it's gonna mix together short staccato strums, like that, and also muted strums, where there's absolutely no sound at all, just the sound of the pick scraping against the strings. Okay, so the way we do that, we have the B9 chord fretted, we start off with a downstroke, and then a short upstroke. Downstroke, short upstroke. Next, we need to get this motion in. So that was a scrape, an upstroke, nice and short, another scrape, an upstroke, nice and short, and then another upstroke, nice and short. Down, up, up. After that, I might do the little walk down, A string 2, 1 on the A string, then I'm going to do an A7 chord. I usually like to have my pinky added into that chord, so I have 2nd fret of the D string, 2nd fret of the B, and pinky on the G note here on the 3rd fret of the high E string. And I'll do that same technique. Now, if I'm doing this right, as I kind of take the pressure off, I can put my first finger kind of in between these 2 fingers here in order to block the B string. I can usually cover up most of the open strings, but it's not so important that I get it perfectly clean. This is blues after all. Okay, so when you put these 2 chords together, B9, A7, on the B9 chord we have down, up, up, a little walk. Now the A7 chord, we're gonna do the same pattern, but I'm gonna throw in an extra down up just to kind of help me get into the E chord, which is coming up next. So the A7 chord will have down, up, down, up, and then we have our turnaround. Okay, now the moment we've all been waiting for, this excellent way of turning the progression back around. Let's say that you've just completed the majority of your 12-bar blues, you're at the end of the progression now, to the 5 chord, just like I showed you. Now, nice and slow, that turnaround is gonna sound like this. Okay, so there's a lot going on in this turnaround. It starts off with an E major chord with a hammer on onto the G string, just a strum like this. But I'm only gonna go down to that G string. Then do an upstroke on the high strings before doing a nice little walk up like this. So the way I do that is I slide from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret of the E string, making sure not to voice that 2nd fret. Just slide in from there up to the 4th fret. Hammer, upstroke, slide. Then I'm on the 2nd fret of the A string, then the 4th fret of the A string. So what the audience basically hears is hammer, upstroke, 4, 2, 4, E string, A string, A string. That slide is just for an added effect. Then we're going to play an A7 chord with an upstroke. First I played the root though, so I have the root, upstroke on the A7 chord. Then my first finger is going to create this walk-up effect. This is one of my favorite parts of the turnaround. The first fret goes to the B flat note, 1st fret of the A string, for what is basically a B flat diminished chord. So far we have the hammer, an upstroke, slide to 4, 2, 4, A, upstroke, B flat, upstroke. Then I'm going to play a B7 chord Actually, I'm sorry, my B9 chord. Same chord that we had at the end of the progression. Same thing, root and an upstroke. Now. Okay, so at this point, we're actually gonna leave the basic 1-4-5 in E. E major, A7, and that B9 chord, and feature in passing this C9 chord, which will usher us back to the B9. Okay, so far we have the E major chord with the hammer, upstroke, slide to 4, 2, 4, A note, upstroke on A7, B flat note, upstroke again, then the B9 chord, root, upstroke. It's at this point that we have this nice little movement. Okay, so what I did there is I nice muted strum over the C9 chord, and then a nice sharp, short upstroke there on the C9 chord, another down stroke, dead, and then an upstroke on the B9 chord. So C9, dead, up, dead, upstroke on B9. Put it all together. Throw in an extra upstroke, then this great little Texas blues style riff. All I did there was a hammer on the first fret of the A string, a little bend on the 3rd fret E string, and then the open E string, and an upstroke oftentimes with another hammer on. Alright everyone, thanks so much for checking out this lesson on Top Secret Blues Guitar Tricks Uncovered. Real quick, take a moment to head over to the link in the description and put your request in for my next lesson. I'll have plenty more videos coming up, so keep checking back. Please subscribe. This is Rob at Swift Guitar Lessons in Philadelphia saying happy picking.